Jaden Daniels. Well, he's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't he? I feel like every other Thursday, I'm sitting here making a video about some crazy things surrounding the Las Vegas Raiders and or Jaden Daniels. And now we've got people like Brian Kelly, Freudian slipping that he might be going to Washington. We got Devontae posting on his Instagram story the Jaden Daniels, my resume speaks for itself thing, which is right behind my left shoulder. We got Josina Anderson talking to AP saying, so you're going to trade up for Jaden? He's like, hey, if you got that pick, let's make it happen. This is the worst kept secret in the history of NFL transactional periods. The Raiders are desperate to make a move up to number 3. We've beaten this horse to its absolute death so much, but there's one thing we do need to talk about that we haven't yet discussed about this whole draft saga with the Las Vegas Raiders. And that thing is this. If they are going to trade up, where is that going to need to be to secure a Jaden Daniels draft pick that isn't the number 1 overall pick? And when should they do this? Because if you think, well, they should trade up to 3 and go get Jaden Daniels, what if he's gone by 2? Are you okay to just draft JJ McCarthy? Is that something we're good with? Because in my opinion, you cannot make a move up to 3 unless it is confirmed, guaranteed that your guy's going to be there. That's the first thing we need to talk about. And the first thing that I'm going to ask you guys, is Jaden Daniels going to be there when the Patriots are on the clock? Because if Brian Kelly knows anything, and he said Washington because he knows he's going there, or did he just say Washington because that's one of the teams that is there that he just talked to? He just talked to one of the head coaches. He just talked to Cliff Kingsbury, blah, blah, blah. He just talked to a Washington scout. Washington was in his brain. It was incepted into his mind, and then he just said it. Or does he know something we don't know? That's the first thing we have to talk about. In my opinion, like I said, I don't think you should just move up all willy-nilly if your guy's not going to be there unless you're as bullish on Jaden Daniels as you are some other guy. But we haven't heard any talk about Drake May or Penix or Bo. We have heard, however, Antonio Pierce talk highly of JJ McCarthy. He said out loud, I don't know how he ain't in the top 3 discussion. He's a national champion. He led the number 1 seed to an undefeated season, blah, 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 right? And you would say, well, he wouldn't say that. He wouldn't tip his hand if that's something we were actually considering, drafting J.J. McCarthy. And I would agree with you, except not 5 minutes ago, he asked Josina Anderson if she had the pick to use to draft Jaden. So he clearly's got no problem just laying all his cards out there. And I got no problem with that either. Let's try something different. Let's get a little bravadic with it. Is that a word? It's like bravado, but, you know, like a verb. So maybe we're living in a world where they trade up to 3, hoping that either Jaden or JJ falls there, and we just take one of them, right? I don't know if I'm comfortable living in that world, because that would suggest that we're okay with having a mobile guy or more of a pocket passer, which means we're kind of in that weird gray area. If they draft Jaden and Aiden's their backup, well, that's also going to be a weird problem too. You would think the signing of Gardner Minshew signifies that we're not going to go Jaden, or they don't think we can get him because we got 2 pocket passers backing him up. And the Washington Commanders signed Marcus Mariota, and everyone was like, well, Jaden Daniels number 2 overall, you can take that to the bank. And then there's the JJ McCarthy of it all. Apparently, there's a lot of executives out there that think that he's going to go number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders, which would leave Jaden Daniels to fall to New England. And I believe New England's the key to this whole thing, because I think New England is still thinking we're not a quarterback away. If we draft a young guy and we start him immediately, it's going to be rough. We have Jacoby Brissett that we can throw in there. We can have our young guy learn behind him. But we're so many players away from being good again that maybe we should take the 11th overall pick from the Vikings, or the 12th overall pick from the Broncos, or the 13th overall pick from the Raiders, and take a bunch more first and get out of that spot and stockpile assets to make our team good again. Which would mean that if JJ goes 2 and Jaden's there at 3, the Patriots' phone is going to be off the hook. Which leads me to my next point. People saying, If someone's going to trade up, why don't they trade up? Because I think there's so many quarterback options right now, and they're so polarizing. Opposite ends of the spectrum. Drake May's over here. Jaden Daniels is down here. And in terms of just play style, not ranking. Just like one is a straight pocket passer. One couldn't be farther from that. I think the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Raiders all know the exact guy who they want to get. I think the Vikings want J.J. McCarthy. I think the Broncos and the Raiders both want Jaden Daniels. And I think they don't know yet, which is crazy because usually by now you have a pretty good idea. They don't know yet who's going to be at the number 2, 3, and 4 spots in terms of availability at the quarterback position. So if you're saying, why aren't they making moves right now? That's because every single team, in my opinion, might be waiting till draft night. And if J.J. McCarthy goes 2 overall, I think the Vikings probably trade up to 4 to get Drake May. The problem with getting up to 4, which is something maybe the Raiders want to consider doing, is that Marvin Harrison is an otherworldly product, an otherworldly prospect, an otherworldly human being that the Cardinals have no reason to want to trade out of that spot. It is the perfect storm to not be able to trade up unless the Patriots think we need to get more picks. So it brings me back to this. You can't trade up until you know who's there. You won't know who's there until draft night, which means whoever trades up is not going to move up until the Patriots are on the clock. And when the Patriots are on the clock, their phone is going to be ringing, and it's going to come down to who is the most desperate. Desperation has a negative connotation, bars, but sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. And you know I've been on the AOC bandwagon, and I'm still on the AOC bandwagon. But if Devontae wants Jaden Daniels, and we're trying to win now, and AP thinks he's the guy, and Telesco thinks that Jaden Daniels would be better than AOC and Minshew combined, who might argue that? If it takes desperation to change your franchise, and it ends up working, you've got a dynasty. So for everyone waiting for someone to trade up, my suggestion is strap in and be patient because it's not going to come until draft day. However, if Michael Penix is there at 13 overall, some people had him as a second-round pick, and after his pro day, everyone's like, there might be 5 quarterbacks within the first 10 picks. This is something we also have to talk about. We're going to be sitting there at 13. If Penix is there, do they take him? Or do you just say, screw it? We're going to take the best available player, whether that's a DT from Texas, a corner from Alabama, or a tight end from Georgia, if you catch my drift. There's going to be a lot to consider. And I think what you need to take away from this video is that right now the NFL executives have no idea where these quarterbacks are going except for Caleb Williams. Because there's so many wild cards with the Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders, the Giants. What are the Patriots going to do? It's very, very interesting. And you have to ask yourself, not only are you willing to be desperate enough to go get your guy, but what if he's not there if you make the move too early? Hopefully that's the last video I make about Jaden Daniels until the NFL draft. I don't mean to squeeze him for every single ounce like every other Raider YouTuber, but sometimes he's very interesting to talk about because Brian Kelly is saying he's going to the Commanders, and I'm like, well, that's a video. Last thing I'd like to say on all of this, if we don't get the quarterback position right away, I don't think that's on Antonio Pierce. I don't even think that's on Tom Telesco. I think it's hard to do. I watch Antonio Pierce on every single interview that he does and how he answers these questions. I am so happy that he's our head coach. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I would just like to gush about Antonio Pierce for a few seconds. Not only is he like a Raider through and through, we know this, right? He's a dog. He's got the bravado. There's that word again. He's got the swag. But he understands what it is to be a coach and to be in front of a microphone. I was worried that he was going to get in front of the mic and people were going to be like, oh, God, like this guy just wants to be Dan Campbell. He's like shooting for the stars. He just wants mic drop moments. He wants those sound bites, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of was like that on Crosby's podcast. But when he gets into a professional NFL setting, he's found a way to still be himself while also playing the game of, well, here, I'll show you my hand, but I'm not going to show you if I'm going to play. I'm not going to show you what I'm betting on. I'm not going to show you the blueprint, but I'll tell you, here's the kinds of players we want to be a Raider. And I think that he's really shown how to take a step back and ask questions from people, like he said, Marvin Lewis, Joe Philbin, Tom Coughlin. These guys seem to really be molding him into the ideal head coaching candidate. And if he can get things rolling with Luke Getsy and Patrick Graham, and we can get the right players, I think we found our real deal next head coach for a long time. And it's someone that obviously won't want to leave because he's been a Raider his whole life. Even when he played for the Giants, he knows he's been a Raider. And I'm ready to rock and roll with AP. I can't wait for the season to start. Just had this feeling that even if we don't win every single game we play, we're going to fight to the bitter end. And it's going to be fun to watch. So I can't wait. Comment below your thoughts. Drop likes. How's your March Madness bracket doing? Baseball opening day. Pirates win. Let's get it. Any Bucks fans out there? Patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. You can get your name at the end of the credits if you sign up. You can get ad-free content. You can get video access days in advance. You get to watch all the Madden games that I'm playing. Weeks 7 and 8 are up right now. It's absolute chaos in Madden franchise mode. The whole series will be out in one long video before the draft for the public. But for right now, the games are going up on their own privately on Patreon. Link is in the description below. If you have the time, go check it out. Patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. If not, that's okay. You're doing just enough by watching the video. Please be sure to subscribe. It is free after all, no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.